Have you ever noticed this? You're mid-sentence, and someone cuts you off like what you were saying didn't matter. Or they respond slowly, over-explaining something you already understand, almost like they're talking down to you. And the worst part? You feel it, that quiet disrespect in the room, but you can't explain why it keeps happening. So you tell yourself, maybe I need more confidence. Maybe I need to speak louder. Maybe I'm just not assertive enough. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't about confidence. It's about perception. Because people don't talk down to you because you're weak. They do it because of one mental signal you're unknowingly sending. And once you see it, you'll realize you've been leaking authority without even knowing it. And the moment you remove that signal, something strange happens. People start choosing their words more carefully around you. Here's what no one tells you. People don't respect intentions. They respect signals. You can mean well. You can be smart, kind, even capable. But none of that matters if the signals you send say something else. Because social hierarchies aren't logical. They're subconscious. People don't sit down and think, let me disrespect this person. They feel it. They sense how easy it is to interrupt you, how quickly you react, how much you try to explain yourself. And most people, without realizing it, try to fix this the wrong way. They demand respect with words. They say things like, let me finish. Please listen. I deserve respect. But the moment you ask for respect, you quietly admit you don't already have it. And that's why it keeps backfiring. So no, you're not broken. You're not weak. You're not less than. You've just been playing a game without knowing the rules. And 500 years ago, a man obsessed with power, perception, and human behavior saw this pattern clearly. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. And what he realized about respect is deeply uncomfortable, but once you understand it, everything starts to make sense. Let me show you the mental rule he lived by, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Machiavelli understood something most people still struggle to accept. People don't judge you by what you say you are. They judge you by how hard you are to move, how easily you're shaken, how quickly you react, how much access people have to your emotions. In other words, respect doesn't come from being nice. It comes from predictability and boundaries. If someone can interrupt you and you rush to recover, they learn something. If someone can joke at your expense and you laugh it off nervously, they learn something. If someone can disrespect you and get an emotional reaction out of you, they learn something. And what they learn is this: you're movable. And once people sense that, they subconsciously downgrade you. Not because they're evil, not because they're trying to dominate you, but because the human brain is wired to respect what feels stable and dismiss what feels reactive. This is the uncomfortable part. The more emotional access people have to you, the less authority they feel from you. And Machiavelli didn't fight this truth. He observed it and used it. Because once you understand this, you stop trying to win respect with words. Instead, you change the signal. And there's one mental rule that does exactly that. Here it is, the rule Machiavelli lived by. And once you hear it, you'll start noticing how people accidentally destroy their own authority every single day. Here's the mental rule. This is the line that changes everything. Never teach people that they can access your emotions, time, or energy without consequence. At first, that might sound harsh, cold, almost selfish. But listen carefully. This isn't about pushing people away. It's about what you allow without resistance. Because whether you realize it or not, every interaction is a lesson. You are constantly teaching people how fast they can interrupt you, how much they can joke at your expense, how emotional they can make you, how much explaining you'll do to be understood. And people don't learn from what you say. They learn from what you tolerate. This is where most people get it wrong. They think respect comes from proving themselves, from explaining more clearly, from being louder, from being more confident. But real respect works in reverse. Respect is not requested. It's assumed. The moment you over-explain yourself, you signal uncertainty. The moment you rush to fill silence, you signal nervousness. The moment you emotionally react to small disrespect, you signal fragility. And the human brain reads fragility as something that can be pushed. That's why calm firmness beats loud confidence every time. Think about the people you naturally respect. They don't talk the most. They don't justify themselves endlessly. They don't react to everything. They move slowly. They choose their words. And when something crosses a line, they don't explode. They withdraw. That's the part most people miss. Power doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from withholding access. When someone realizes they can't easily get a reaction from you, can't easily shake you, can't easily pull your energy out of you, something shifts. Not because you said anything, not because you asserted dominance, but because you stopped leaking authority. This rule isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming contained. You still care. You're still kind. You're still human. But your emotions are no longer open property. And once you internalize this rule, you start seeing something uncomfortable everywhere. People don't lose respect because they're weak. They lose respect because they give too much access too quickly. And without realizing it, they teach people exactly how little they should be valued. Now let me show you how this plays out in real life. Because once you see these moments, you'll realize how often authority is lost in seconds. Let's bring this out of philosophy and into real life. Because this isn't happening in palaces or politics anymore. It's happening in classrooms, group chats, family dinners, work calls, friend circles. Picture this. Someone makes a joke at your expense. Nothing brutal, just subtle enough to sting. You feel it, but you laugh anyway, a little too quickly. That laugh teaches something. It teaches, this is allowed. Or this one. You're explaining an idea, and halfway through, someone cuts you off. You stop. Then you rush to re-explain, speak faster, add more details, trying to prove you were worth listening to. That rush teaches something too. It teaches, I can be interrupted. Or maybe this feels familiar. Someone questions your decision, and instead of standing calmly in it, you over-justify. You give reasons, then more reasons, then examples, then reassurance. Not because you're wrong, but because you want approval. And without realizing it, you've taught them something dangerous. Your decisions are negotiable. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every one of these reactions feels polite, feels harmless, feels nice. But together, they train people to see you as someone who can be pushed. Machiavelli warned about this exact thing. Not in modern words, but in principle. The moment people realize they can pull emotions out of you, rush you, confuse you, pressure you, they stop seeing you as solid. And here's the part most people miss. You don't regain authority by correcting people. You regain it by changing your behavior. Silence can be stronger than explanation. A pause can be stronger than defense. Calm disengagement can be stronger than confrontation. Sometimes the most powerful response is not reacting at all. Not because you're scared, but because you don't need to prove your weight. And this is where many people misunderstand Machiavelli. They think this philosophy turns you cold, detached, fake, but that's not power. That's insecurity wearing armor. So before we go any further, we need to clear something up, because if you misunderstand this rule, you'll apply it the wrong way. Before you try to apply this rule, we need to slow down for a moment, because this is where most people go wrong. They hear ideas like this and think, so I need to be cold now, detached, unapproachable, alpha. No, that's not strength. That's insecurity pretending to be power. This rule is not about being rude, being arrogant, acting superior, dominating conversations, or making people feel small. If you have to show power, you don't have it. Real authority doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't rush to correct every misunderstanding. It's quiet, slow, and selective. Think about it. The people who feel intimidating in a calm way, they don't react to everything. They don't explain themselves to everyone. They don't try to win every moment. They choose where their energy goes. And that's the difference. This rule isn't about pushing people away. It's about not chasing approval. It's about being warm without being porous, kind without being collapsible, present without being available to everyone. You're not closing your heart. You're protecting your center. Because the moment you start reacting emotionally to every little thing, every comment, every joke, every interruption, you hand control to the room. And control, once given, is very hard to take back. Here's the paradox most people miss. The less you try to control how people see you, the more control you actually gain. When you don't rush to defend yourself, people assume there's nothing to defend. When you don't over-explain, people assume you're grounded in your decisions. When you don't react, people start watching you more closely. Not because you're cold, but because you're stable. And stability is rare. So no, this rule doesn't turn you into someone you hate. It turns you into someone who is self-contained. Someone who doesn't leak energy. Someone who doesn't beg to be understood. Someone who doesn't teach others how to disrespect them. Now the real question becomes, How do you actually apply this in daily life, without sounding aggressive, without changing your personality, and without saying a single confrontational sentence? That's what we're getting into next. Now let's make this practical. Not theory, not philosophy. Real behavior you can start using today. Because this rule only works if it shows up in how you move, not what you say. Here are 4 small shifts that change how people perceive you, almost immediately. First, speak slower, not louder. When people feel disrespected, they usually speed up. They talk more. They raise their voice. They try to overpower the moment. Do the opposite. Slower speech signals control. It tells the room, I'm not rushed. I'm not nervous. People subconsciously adjust to your pace. Second, pause before you respond. This one is uncomfortable at first. When someone questions you, challenges you, or says something disrespectful, don't answer instantly. Pause, even for 2 seconds. That pause does 3 things. It breaks their rhythm. It shows you're not reactive. It makes your response feel intentional. Most people speak to fill silence. When you don't, they feel it. Third, stop over-explaining your decisions. You don't need to justify everything. When you explain too much, you send the message, I need you to agree with me. Instead, say less, but say it clearly. I've decided this works best for me. I'm not available for that. I'm good with my choice. And stop there. Clarity without apology is powerful. Fourth, calmly exit disrespectful situations. This is the most advanced move. Not arguing, not correcting, not proving a point, just disengaging. You don't need to storm out. You don't need to make a speech. You simply remove your attention. Because attention is currency. And when people realize disrespect costs them access to you, they adjust. Not immediately, not dramatically, but consistently. And that's the key. You're not training people through confrontation. You're training them through consistency. Every calm response, every pause, every moment you don't react emotionally, you're reinforcing the same message. I'm not easy to move. And once that message sinks in, something unexpected starts to happen. People change how they approach you, how they speak to you, how carefully they choose their words. Not because you demanded it, but because the rules changed. And that leads to the final shift, the one that turns this from a technique into an identity. Here's the part no one warns you about. When you stop reacting, when you stop over-explaining, when you stop giving everyone emotional access, the world starts treating you differently. Not all at once, not dramatically, but subtly. People begin choosing their words more carefully around you. They hesitate before interrupting. They listen a little longer when you speak. Your silence carries more weight than your arguments ever did. And what's important to understand is this. You didn't force anyone to respect you. You didn't dominate. You didn't intimidate. You didn't become loud or aggressive. You simply became harder to move. And human beings instinctively respect what feels grounded. This is where the shift becomes internal. You stop trying to manage how people see you. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing every interaction to go your way. Instead, you develop something deeper. A calm sense of self-possession. You know where you stand. You know what you tolerate. And you don't feel the need to explain it. That's when respect stops being something you seek and starts being something that follows you. Because power doesn't begin in how others treat you. It begins in how easily you allow yourself to be shaken. And once you realize that, this stops being a technique you use and becomes the way you move through the world. Which brings us to the most important takeaway of all. Here's what I want you to remember. Respect is not loud. Power is not emotional. And the strongest people in the room are rarely the most reactive. They don't rush. They don't explain themselves to everyone. They don't give access to anyone who asks for it. They choose. So this week, don't try to change people. Just observe. Watch how often you rush to respond. Notice where you over-explain. Pay attention to moments where silence would say more than words. And instead of reacting, pause. Because the moment you stop teaching people how to treat you, they're forced to figure it out on their own. If this video gave you clarity, share it with someone who feels talked down to but doesn't know why. And if you want more insights like this, less motivation, more truth, you know what to do. Stay grounded, stay calm, and never forget, the hardest person to disrespect is the one who doesn't need to react.